All right, this is my dust collection for my miter saw, my pencil sharpener, and my dovetail jig. The miter saw just pulls off, dovetail jig goes in the same place. I don't know how well that's going to work, but that's future me's problem. Right now we're going to talk about how this works for the miter saw. The problem is, since it moves in both directions, tilts in both directions, and it slides, the box to put behind it would be huge, which would collect more sawdust, but once again, it's a huge box. I don't want to do that. So what I decided to do was put this curved piece of wood on the back. This curved piece of wood was made by just throwing a piece of plywood in the pond, letting it soak in, I mean really soak, and then I put it between these two 4x6s and put some weight on it. It made it curve naturally, and then I just let it dry like that in front of the wood stove, and I ended up with this curved piece of wood. So I did that twice because I wanted one that was kind of adjustable to move up and down, which I thought I'd be able to get closer, but once you put it on that bevel, this comes down to this height. So this is the highest height I have if I want to keep all the functionality of my miter saw without changing my fence, which we'll see how this works out. There might be some minor changes on this later. But I have this curved piece of wood. It has the suction coming in from the back, and then it comes up to that Y, where I also have this 2-inch tube coming to the actual dust collection port of the miter saw. So I did have to modify a couple things. So this connection here, it's just a PVC joint, and I attached this piece, which just made for the hose, and I basically ended up cutting off a piece of the 6-inch pipe that I had to cut anyway. I cut it in a section where it just fit snug inside in between these two, and it was already tight. And then I put a whole bunch of Gorilla Glue in there, so I don't see anything going wrong with this. It's all sealed up, ready to go. I was going to put it like this, where the air is going in and then shooting straight up. It seems too extreme. So I'm going to cut this off and just use this fitting and let it have a more gradual turn as it goes up that hose. So I'm going to cut this off. This is going to go on my miter saw. And then I got this box that I just made that's going to go underneath the miter saw, which it'll make more sense as you see it put on. And then, so this will pull from underneath the miter saw while it's also pulling from the back. Once I pull a suction on this dust collection port on the miter saw, it gets about 68% of the sawdust already. The rest of it is just cleanup by this guy. I'll show you some other angles of it so you get a better idea of what I got. Then I'll do a bunch of cutting for the table you'll see in the next project, and I'll just see how much dust is left over. And then I'll modify it from there if needed, which it probably will be. Alright, so that was the first go at it. It worked pretty good. Most of the sawdust, like I said, 68% of it went through the chute. Part of the remaining went down. You can see where it was actually pulled down into the dust collector, but there's still quite a bit left, as you can see at the end of that video. So I'm doing a couple things. One of them, I needed to replace that blade. This blade was not meant to cut soft metals. It wasn't meant to cut that sewer pipe. And I've had it for a while. I knew it was dull, but I didn't know it was that dull. You'll see how it cuts extremely better in this next video. Then I taped up a couple of the joints. So let's see how that improved. For that one, I just changed out the blade. I taped up one of the joints that was the loosest one. It was one of those PowerTech fittings into the sewer pipe, which they work great. It's just they don't fit really super snug. That's what I got. It actually did better than I thought it would. There's way less dust than I expected. Maybe we're on the right track. We're gonna keep on going though. As you can see, after I did 90-degree cuts, table's pretty clean. Once I do 45-degree cuts, it's not as clean, but it's pretty good. So I think the one thing I can do to improve this is bring a dust port off of the front on each side. That'll get that sawdust that's on that away side of the blade to go around and down, hopefully into that port, but I got other projects to get to, and that's what I'm gonna do. We'll get back to this. There may be a part 2 in the future, and there may not be. I may just sweep up the rest of that sawdust.
All right, here we are. We've come to that magical point in every dust collection project.
The point of this is good enough. So I'm gonna leave it here. This is where it's gonna sit probably for the next year or so. My final configuration, I come to this Y right off the blast gate, and it comes to this 2.5-inch tube. This tube pulls about 62% of all the sawdust. So I highly recommend, if you do nothing at all, get some kind of dust collection off of this port right here. Once I put this Y in here, it sucks all that sawdust in, not all of it, more like 25% of that sawdust around from the blade. It does a pretty good job. Now I went back and I drilled a bunch of holes, I cut some plywood, and I blocked up that bottom one. I did different things, and I always ended up in this last configuration. 5% of the sawdust doesn't end up on my floor and ends up in here because of that bottom piece. So that's 92%. Also, I need to let you know, 98% of all these percentages are completely made up. If dust collection excites you, hold on. Next week, I'm gonna show you my table. This dust collection table does everything else that this table doesn't do for me. So, if you're excited about that kind of thing, don't forget to subscribe and share my videos, and I'll see you in the next one. If dust collection excites you, you'll be even more excited. You'll be even more excited. You'll be even more excited.